Thank you so much, Hans, for that beauty to start our morning on this beautiful day. And good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia Online, a congregation striving to embody courageous love, radical welcome, and deep connection. I'm the Reverend Housh Gordon, and I am so glad to be back with you from my sabbatical and to welcome you to our community. In this first Sunday back in the pulpit, I want to extend a deep thank you to the Reverend Dr. C.W. Dawson for leading as sabbatical minister these last 4 months. What a lucky congregation we are. What a lucky minister I am to have such a wonderful colleague. We are grateful this morning in our online worship to be able to connect with many folks from Missouri and beyond. Wherever you are connecting, we welcome you. And if you're from somewhere beyond Missouri, we'd particularly love to hear in the chat where you're logging in from. A few brief comments about protocol. We're in Zoom and streaming live on Facebook. For those of you with us on Zoom, we are in webinar mode, so we can't hear or see you, but we would love for you to say hello and interact with the service through the chat feature on Zoom and the comments on Facebook. If you're with us on Zoom, make sure you select everyone so we can all see your comment, especially if you share during our Joys and Sorrows portion of the service. And on accessibility, we are using Zoom's native auto captioning service, which means you should see automatically generated subtitles at the bottom of your screen. You can hide or alter those subtitles by clicking the closed caption button to make any changes you need. We know it won't be entirely accurate, but close enough to be helpful, we hope. We also will be providing spoken descriptions of the videos and images we use, and we'd like to invite you to contact us if you have any other accessibility or inclusion needs that we can strive to meet in our online worship. If this is your first time joining us, we'd like to invite you to fill out a digital visitors card at the link provided in the chat to let us know a little bit about you and let us keep in touch. And we'd like to begin our service this morning with gratitude for everyone who makes these online services possible. Thank you today to our online usher, Scott Krause, and to our worship associate, Todd Iveson. And as always, we are grateful to our amazing staff, April Rodiguero running slides, religious educator Jamila Batchelder, music director Jeremy Wagner, and pianist Hans Bridger Harris. Now please take a deep breath, find a comfortable position for your body, and sink into this time of inspiration and space of renewal with the help and hope of our prelude, which this morning is entitled Universe Moving, an original vibraphone composition by UU church member Sam Buffalo. In the video, Sam is pictured, a man with curly dark hair and light skin, using 4 mallets in 2 hands to play a large metal instrument with bars and pipes very impressively. Please enjoy. Thank you so much to Sam for sharing his musical gifts with us. This morning's service is called The Shy Soul, which is a reference to an essay by Parker Palmer that we'll be hearing part of later. And the whole service gets at the idea of soul sideways, as we often do in our worship with poetry and song. But of course, this is a Unitarian Universalist congregation, so it's always good to define your terms. So here is my working, evolving definition of the word soul. For now, the part of each of us that is most deeply present to and sprung from and interconnected with the fullness of life and the entanglement of the whole universe. I believe that we feel the soul's presence when we are deeply moved, wholly present, or even entirely bewildered by life's mysteries. What is soul to you? Perhaps you'd like to share in the chat now or as the service goes on. For the moment, let us now draw close to mystery. Engage every sense in the moment at hand and make a space for the shy soul to arrive. I invite you to join in singing our gathering hymn, Gathered Here. You can find the lyrics in the chat or on the screen. The image on screen will be of a campfire by a river with the hymn words overlaid in white text.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirits draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the body, scattered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the body, scattered here in the struggles and the body, scattered here in the struggle and the power, scattered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the body, scattered here in the struggles and the body, scattered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
We now light our chalice, the symbol of our faith in the community that holds us, and the bright flame of the human spirit that unites us. As we share an image of our church chalice on the screen, you may wish to light a chalice at home or look in the chat for a digital chalice. Please join me in lifting your voices in homes across our city, county, and country and world to share our weekly words of affirmation shown on the slide and shared in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. So today we're reflecting on the soul. And I was raised in a religious tradition that didn't focus on the soul. And yet somehow this word still has great power to me, a poetic meaning that goes beyond conscious and logical understanding. So I'm not sure I could put into words what I mean when I say soul, but I've been thinking about it a lot this week. What do we mean when we talk about soul? And where do we feel that sense of our soul within us? And how do we find connection with it? The understanding that came to me as I thought about it is that for me, the soul is the truest, most authentic part of ourselves, the part that's been there all along and yet somehow becomes more true through our experience of living life in all its joys and sorrows. And the word that kept coming up in my meditation was deep, that our soul sits within the deepest part of us, a part that goes deeper and deeper through all of our experiences in life. And that when we experience soul, we are drawn ever deeper into this world and this life. So let's take a deep breath and let our consciousness sit within our body at the place that feels deepest, deep within your core. Breathe deeply and let yourself sink deeply into this space. And now think of those experiences that have let you find new depths of your soul. Perhaps the experience of falling in love. Perhaps the experience of having your heart broken. Remember how that deepened you and sink into that. Think of a time you experienced beauty so exquisite it brought you to tears. Think of a time you experienced disappointment where it felt all you had hoped for crumbled before you. What depths did you find in yourself then? Sink in, deeper and deeper. Remember a time holding a new baby in your arms and wondering at new life. And a time you laid to rest someone you loved. Each experience brought you deeper and deeper to the place where your soul resides. And sit now in that space, in this subterranean place at the center of you. Sit with the essence, the energy that you find there. And now, imagine it transformed as sound, a deep and soulful sound, rich and layered, joyful and mournful, pure and complicated, welling up from this deep, deep space. Let it reverberate and fill the inner cathedral that your life has created. You have given it so much space to resonate in all its fullness. And imagine the soulful sounds of those around you, blending with your own, each unique and yet connected to your own sound, because each express what it is to be human, to live within this world Imagine those sounds all around you. And now, let your soulful sound slowly fade and return again to your breath. And may we continue to hear the song of our soul. And may we hear each other's.
And in this deep place of connection and presence, let us bear witness to one another. As we share an image of lit candles and our joys and sorrows stones on the screen, I'd like to invite you to bring your compassionate presence to our community as we share the joys, sorrows, and prayers of our community and hold one another in heart across the distance. I will begin by sharing the joys and sorrows submitted at our website and a couple of prayers for our world. Then I will invite all of you to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. Let us join our hearts in love with Mary Feller. That she was in the hospital for a week to get diagnosed with bipolar 2. Mary Fran shares that when her doctor told her that, she felt like she knew deep down, but when he said it, it unfolded many emotions and feelings. Mary Fran, we are holding you with love in this moment and always. We join our hearts with the family, friends, students, and loved ones of George Frizzell, who joined to celebrate his life this afternoon at 2 p.m. at the Reichman Pavilion of Stevens Lake Park. We remember George with love. We join our hearts in care to the people of Afghanistan and Lebanon, and to all people in the throes of political crisis or violence. We join our hearts in care to the people of Haiti, who yesterday suffered a huge earthquake to the extent that the damage and loss is still becoming known. Let us share our care and pledge our support. And I now invite your joys and sorrows in the chat or the comments on Facebook. We join our hearts with Mindy, who shares a desire for peace and strength for a dear friend whose cancer has returned and who has once again started chemotherapy. We join our hearts with Ruth in sorrow that a vaccinated friend, Carol, has been diagnosed with COVID. Healing wishes. We join our hearts with the Johnson family, celebrating that James got a new job to start this weekend. We join our hearts with Tonette in sorrow for a friend whose mom and dad have both been diagnosed with COVID. We join our hearts with Jamila, who shares joy for a mask mandate in the public schools. We join our hearts with Lisa, who shares that meeting place of joy and sorrow in celebrating the life of Nancy, who courageously lived each day through breast cancer with honesty and vibrance, and who has gone now from this plane. Peace to her and all who loved her. Let us hold together in that. Oh, we have a joy from Ben for having a shower moment recently, laughing and shouting whoops of joy, immersed in excitement for returning to finish college this month. Excitement with Ben. We share our hearts with Gwyn, who shares love for the family of Eric Monshton, who took his life this past week at the age of 20. In the deep presence, in the soul of our shared community, we hold these joys and sorrows together, the fullness of life and love and loss. We hold them together in the spirit of prayer, which I now continue with these words from Maureen Caloran. We share a prayer for all who are fearful about disease, the fate of our country, care for yourself or your children. For all whose hearts ache at the injustices being done to others in our name. For all who fear for our survival on this planet. For all who fear whether they will be allowed to enter or to leave or to remain. We make this prayer for all who deal daily with failing health, difficult diagnoses, challenging treatments, or healthcare routines. For all who struggle with difficulties at school or work. For all who are facing hard decisions, for all who are living in challenging relationships. We make this prayer for ourselves, for all the fears and concerns, the joys and celebrations. We make this prayer for the children, for their future, and for every unfolding possibility of our lives and theirs. We make this prayer to hold in our hearts all the precious blessings of our lives. We make this prayer not because we expect it to turn the world or change it. We make this prayer to remind ourselves of who we are, of what life is, and of how important love can be. We make these prayers in hopes that these words will minister to our deepest places, that we will be held together. Amen. Our song of response is Lifted in Love by Carl Karouche and Leah Morris. Leah performs the song in the video, and she is pictured singing and drumming, a woman with very short dark hair and brown skin. The words are captioned at the bottom of the screen, and different pictures of Leah are laid on top of each other, with her providing different parts of the song.
We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the birds, they tell us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as a flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the sky, it tells us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the children raise all their faces to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. the seas they tell us we're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love.
Our reading this morning is an excerpt from the essay, A Circle of Trust, by Quaker writer and educator Parker Palmer. He writes, like a wild animal, the soul is tough, resilient, resourceful, savvy, and self-sufficient. It knows how to survive in hard places. I learned about these qualities during my bouts with depression. In that deadly darkness, the faculties I had always depended on collapsed. My intellect was useless. My emotions were dead. My will was impotent. My ego was shattered. But from time to time, deep in the thickets of my inner wilderness, I could sense the presence of something that knew how to stay alive, even when the rest of me wanted to die. That something was my tough and tenacious soul. Yet, despite its toughness, the soul is also shy. Just like a wild animal, it seeks safety in the dense underbrush, especially when other people are around. If we want to see a wild animal, we know that the last thing we should do is go crashing through the woods, yelling for it to come out. But if we will walk quietly into the woods, sit patiently at the base of a tree, breathe with the earth, and fade into our surroundings, the wild creature we seek might put in an appearance. We may see it only briefly and only out of the corner of an eye, but the sight is a gift we will always treasure as an end in itself. Here ends the reading. We are grateful for the use of the next video made by our sister church in Los Alamos, New Mexico. The song is The Lone Wild Bird, performed here with their virtual choir. In the background of the video is an image of a big blue sky over mountains with a large bird soaring across. Layered on top are video images of a woman playing the piano, a man playing the violin, and 8 singers, each in their own square.
There is a poem by the Polish poet Wisława Szymborska entitled A Few Words on the Soul, which I would like to give to you now in its English translation by Stanislaw Baranczak and Claire Kavanaugh. Szymborska writes, "We have a soul at times. No one's got it nonstop for keeps. Day after day, year after year may pass without it. Sometimes it will settle for a while only in childhood's fears and raptures. Sometimes only in astonishment that we are old. It rarely lends a hand in uphill tasks like moving furniture or lifting luggage or going miles in shoes that pinch. It usually steps out whenever meat needs chopping or forms have to be filled. For every 1,000 conversations, it participates in one, if even that, since it prefers silence. Just when our body goes from ache to pain, it slips off duty. It's picky. It doesn't like seeing us in crowds. Our hustling for a dubious advantage and creaky machinations make it sick. Joy and sorrow aren't two different feelings for it. It attends us only when the two are joined. We can count on it when we're sure of nothing and curious about everything. Among the material objects, it favors clocks with pendulums and mirrors, which keep on working even when no one is looking. It won't say where it comes from or when it's taking off again, though it's clearly expecting such questions. We need it, but apparently it needs us for some reason too. Let me tell you, dear ones, it is quite a thing to sit in front of a glowing computer screen and ask the soul to show up and speak a word. Perhaps you've tried before as well. This week, I first tried sitting in a quiet room, but even the rumble of the air conditioner was too loud. Next, I moved outside to the swing with the floral pillows on the sun-drenched porch, but the mosquitoes drove me away before the soul could find me. I sat to meditate and glimpsed the soul peeking at me from the closet where my shirts hang a little off kilter. But by the time I made it to the screen, she was gone again from sight. In the end, I settled for writing without a deep sense of the soul's presence, in the hope that a few true words would lure her. If not to the blinking cursor on my screen, then perhaps into the room where you are right now, to the dusty, untouched corners drawn by our joys and sorrows, or by the sound of violin and singing voices, or the nuance of poetry. Is she there with you? If you take a moment of silence to relax your gaze, you send your attention out to the very ends of your experience, fingertips and top of the head. Do you feel the soul's shy presence? Dear ones, after a terrible year of trauma and worry, of grief and confusion, you allowed me the gift of expansive time to slow way, way down and remember myself away from the work of leadership and the demands of a semi-public life by giving me a sabbatical. I am a very lucky person in that the soul is often close at hand in the work of ministry. She likes to join us at the bedside and the kitchen table, and in our deep conversations and profound bewilderment at life's mysteries, in conflict and song, and dancing. Sometimes the soul even deigns to come to a committee meeting. I have seen it. But I am also a very human person who often pushes away the shy, demanding soul, especially under stress, usually in favor of powering through what must urgently be done and what is interrupted by the inconvenient demands of soul. This was especially true in the last year of decision fatigue and anger and worry, difficult parenting, grief at so much lost from our communal life. It became hard to connect with the soul in all of it. And so in the form of sabbatical, you gave me this incredible gift of putting down the urgency and the long list of things to be done, the time to do nothing but wait patiently for the soul to creep back to my side. Y'all, I wish I could tell you that it was dreamy and beautiful and fun. And of course, moments of it were. But if the soul is a wild animal, I fear I must tell you that I dragged mine back like a feral cat, clawing and spitting. It turns out there were a lot of unpleasant feelings waiting for me to lower my walls. And the soul hung back somewhere beyond their thrashing. I could not reach her without going through the other stuff first. I promised you upon my departure that I would spend some of the sabbatical time in bed staring at the wall, and I've returned to tell you that I keep my vows. I stared down some panic and a lot of grief, some burnout and despair, some anxiety, and the soul was intrigued. With the support of my spiritual director, therapist, colleagues, and dear ones who are always close at hand, thank God, not just during crises. My heart and my community were large enough to hold all of it and to hold me in experiencing all of it until I reached another side. And I did reach another side, dear ones, as I firmly believe we all eventually do. A place of remembering, of piecing myself back together, and of right-sizing all of the paradoxical parts of life so that no one became outsized in comparison to the other. Because the grief and panic and despair, they are a part of life always. But when we can persist through them rather than fighting them off, we find that sometimes they are met by the equal power of love and companionship and hope. In her poem, Szymborska tells us that the place where the two are joined, joy and sorrow and all these other tensions as well, that it is in that place where the soul attends us. So if you ask me how my sabbatical was, if we have time, I might walk you through all the ups and downs month by month, the joys and books and travels and troubles and struggles. But it would be equally true to say that it was in the end beautiful and soulful. And then in order to be beautiful and soulful, it was also at times painful. I wanted to come back and share this with you because I know I am not alone in my humanity. And I want to remind you that you are not alone in yours either. And because our work in this congregation is to build a community where the shy soul shows up. We don't often get to, and we don't actually have to check out or leave our lives in order to reconnect with soul. Our community can and we can create a space of encounter if we will attend to the soul's needs. So there are some things we all need to remember, especially as we move toward regathering in body this fall. Returning from my own time of remembering and making space, I have these hopes for our community in the coming months, and perhaps always. First, that we will move slowly enough for the soul to show up. This pursuit of a different pace is deeply countercultural and difficult to achieve in a society that rushes. It took me weeks of sabbatical to slow down enough to even begin the spiritual work before me. But especially as we regather carrying trauma and burnout and grief, we will need to be intentional about moving slowly in our community and then carrying and building that pace into other parts of our lives. My second hope is that we will move differently and with variety enough to make a space of pluralism where each soul can show up, because some are spooked by noise, but some are drawn to dancing. And there are many on a spectrum, on a glorious rainbow between. This work of variety and difference is no small task, but its challenge is its joy. Third, I hope that we will build a community who allows in the joys and sorrows both, who holds them next to each other without refusing either portion. That will not be a space of toxic positivity or cynicism, of pain avoidance or joy denial. We are a place to hold all of it. We are a place to hold each other, trembling before the fullness of what it is to be human in this world of beauty and terror. Fourth, I hope that we will embody to one another the love and companionship and care and tenderness that makes our struggling to hold the paradox bearable, that we will be the pathway through the hard stuff until each one can get to another side, that we will expect and welcome struggle in piecing our community back together, and stay radically present to that struggle as the only true source of our hope and transformation, and as a deep invitation to soul. And lastly, I hope that we will hold nuance together in this time of extremes, knowing that the soul is drawn to the meeting point of opposites and the spectrum between polarities and all that is spiraling and multiple beyond dualism or category, even when the voices yelling here and there are so loud. Szymborska writes that we can count on the soul when we're sure about nothing and curious about everything. And y'all, we've got the first part covered. We're sure about nothing. So can we be curious? Perhaps this moment is just the right shaky ground to welcome in the soul. If we can get comfortable with our unknowing and curious about what could come next. Dear ones, I am glad and grateful to be back with you in this soulful community on this terrifying and beautiful journey into the depth of life. The poet Rilke writes, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror, just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand." Beloveds, I am reaching out for your hands. We are stretching out together towards soul. Let us go onward together into this year. I love you, and I'm so glad to be back. Our hymn is number 391, Voice Still and Small, which is led in the following video by Colorado UU musician Christopher Watkins Lamb. The video features the song lyrics laid on top of peaceful video clips such as waving wheat, a butterfly on a flower, falling rain, a woman watching the sunrise, growing things, a small child, and leaves on the ground. The song will be sung twice through, and we will also add the lyrics to the chat.
voice still and small, deep inside out, I hear you call, singing in dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing in dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
Now is the time in our service when we join in the spiritual practice of generosity, guiding our hearts away from the fear and scarcity all around us, and remembering that it is by sharing and supporting one another that we feel most human. Please give generously to support the work of our congregation by using the link in the chat or by visiting our website at uucomo.org. Our offertory today is a video of Don't Be Discouraged by Glenn Ballard and China Phillips, performed by the Women's Ensemble of the All Souls UU Church of Washington, D.C., directed by Jen Heyman. The video shows a multiracial choir of 8 women spaced far apart at the front of a sanctuary. One of them sits at a piano and the rest stand. They are all wearing jewel tones and move gently to the song.
Our closing words are by the Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. We are with you across the distance. Go in blessing, dear ones, and be a blessing to a world that needs our care. And let us sing our benediction. The words will come up on your screen and in the chat. Now on leaving one another, may we give of hand and heart. Let us share our benediction lovingly before we part. We invite you to join us for coffee hour. If you want to stick around, the link will be in the chat or the meeting ID is on the slide. In coffee hour, we get a chance to see one another's faces and catch up in small breakout rooms. Thank you so much for joining our worship today, for spending part of your morning with us. We'll see some of you at 2 p.m. over at Stevens for George Frizzell's memorial. We'll see some of you at 4 p.m. here at the church for our bingo and ice cream social. We hope you have a lovely Sunday. Take care.